In the lush waterways of Colombia, an unusual ecological drama is unfolding. What began with just 4 hippopotamuses imported by drug kingpin Pablo Escobar in the 1980s has exploded into one of the most significant invasive species challenges in Latin America. Today, we'll explore how these massive African mammals came to thrive in South America, the surprising ecological impact they're having, and the complex challenges Colombia faces in managing this unexpected legacy of one of history's most notorious criminals. Our story begins in the 1980s at Hacienda Napoles, the lavish estate of Pablo Escobar, Colombia's infamous drug lord. Among his many extravagant displays of wealth was a private zoo stocked with exotic animals from around the world. In a particularly ambitious acquisition, Escobar imported 4 hippopotamuses from Africa, 1 male and 3 females. These massive creatures were status symbols, living trophies in a collection that symbolized Escobar's immense wealth and power. Little did anyone know that these 4 animals would eventually create an ecological crisis spanning generations. When Escobar was killed in 1993, the Colombian government seized his estate, including his private zoo. Most animals were relocated to proper facilities, but the hippos presented a unique challenge. They were simply too large, too dangerous, and too expensive to capture and relocate. The decision was made to leave them in place, a choice that would have far-reaching consequences for Colombia's ecosystems. What started as 4 hippos has now grown into a population estimated between 150 and 170 individuals as of 2023. This exponential growth has shocked scientists, who project that without intervention, the population could reach a staggering 1,000 hippos by 2034. The rapid growth can be attributed to several key factors that have created ideal conditions for these massive mammals. Unlike in Africa, where hippos face natural population controls like predation from large carnivores and seasonal droughts that limit resources, Colombia offers a hippo paradise. The Magdalena River Basin provides year-round access to water, eliminating the stress of drought. The region's tropical climate supports lush vegetation throughout the year, ensuring abundant food sources. And critically, there are no natural predators capable of hunting adult hippos or their young. These favorable conditions have actually accelerated the hippo's reproductive rates beyond what's observed in their native habitat. In Africa, female hippos typically begin breeding at 7 to 8 years of age. However, researchers in Colombia have documented females breeding as young as 5 years old. They're also producing calves more frequently than their African counterparts, further accelerating population growth. Each new generation reaches sexual maturity in this ideal environment, creating a demographic momentum that has transformed 4 exotic pets into one of the most significant invasive species challenges in Latin America. From their original home at Hacienda Napoles, the hippos have steadily expanded their range throughout the Magdalena River Basin. This watershed is Colombia's principal river system, offering the perfect highway for hippo dispersal. Young males, pushed out of their birth groups as they mature, have ventured further afield, establishing new territories and breeding groups. The hippos have proven remarkably adaptable to Colombian conditions, thriving in various water bodies connected to the main river system. As they've spread, local communities have developed complex relationships with these unexpected neighbors. Initially, many residents viewed the hippos with curiosity and even affection. They became unofficial mascots in some areas, drawing tourists and featuring in local culture. This public sentiment formed without awareness of the ecological cascade that would follow in subsequent decades. The hippo's range expansion continues today, with individuals spotted increasingly far from Escobar's former estate. Their territorial nature and need for access to water bodies means they follow river systems, potentially allowing them to reach new regions of Colombia if their population continues to grow unchecked. This steady geographic expansion has transformed what began as a localized oddity into a national ecological concern, with the potential to affect ecosystems throughout northern Colombia and possibly beyond national borders via connected waterways. The presence of hippos in Colombia has sparked intense scientific debate about their ecological impact. Initially, some researchers proposed an intriguing hypothesis that these African mammals might actually serve as ecological replacements for extinct megafauna. South America once hosted giant llamas and rhinoceros-sized creatures called toxodons that went extinct thousands of years ago. A 2020 study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, suggested that hippos might partially restore ecological functions lost after these prehistoric extinctions. This perspective viewed the hippos as potential ecological proxies, filling niches that had been vacant since the Pleistocene era. However, more recent research has painted a far more concerning picture of the hippo's impact. These massive animals are fundamentally altering water chemistry in Colombian lakes and rivers through their waste production. Each adult hippo can produce up to 100 kilograms of dung daily. When deposited in water bodies, this organic matter introduces new nutrients and alters the bacterial composition of aquatic ecosystems. The consequences include harmful algal blooms that can deplete oxygen levels in the water, threatening native fish and other aquatic organisms that evolved in different conditions. The semi-aquatic lifestyle of hippos creates what scientists call a nutrient transport system, moving organic matter from terrestrial to aquatic ecosystems. As hippos graze on land and then return to water, they effectively pump nutrients between these environments in ways that didn't previously occur in Colombian ecosystems. Colombian researchers have measured elevated levels of ammonia, phosphates, and nitrogen in waters frequented by hippos. These chemical changes create conditions that favor certain algae species while disadvantaging native aquatic life that evolved in different water chemistry. This research has shifted scientific consensus toward viewing the hippos as disruptive rather than restorative ecological forces. The environmental footprint of Colombia's hippo population extends far beyond simple presence in the ecosystem. Their impact begins with their massive consumption of vegetation. Adult hippos can consume up to 40 kilograms of grass and plants daily, potentially outcompeting native species for food resources. Their grazing patterns create distinct trails between water and feeding grounds, altering vegetation structure in riparian zones. In the water, their impact is even more pronounced. The hippo's waste significantly alters water chemistry. When this organic matter decomposes, it consumes oxygen and releases nutrients that trigger eutrophication processes, excessive plant and algae growth that can choke aquatic ecosystems. The disruption extends to physical alteration of water bodies. Hippos modify river and lake beds through their movements, creating deeper channels in some areas while compacting soil in others. These physical changes affect water flow patterns and can alter habitat availability for native species. Their territorial marking behaviors, which include spreading dung by vigorously swinging their tails, further alter riparian environments by distributing seeds and nutrients in patterns not previously present in Colombian ecosystems. This can potentially favor invasive plant species or alter plant community composition along waterways. The hippos also compete with native species for resources and have begun disrupting local agricultural activities. Farmers report crop damage from hippos venturing onto agricultural lands, creating economic impacts for local communities. Perhaps most concerning is the cascading effect on food webs. By altering water chemistry in plant communities, hippos create ripple effects that can impact everything from microscopic organisms to top predators. The full extent of these ecosystem-wide changes is still being documented by researchers, but the evidence increasingly points to profound ecological transformation in areas where hippos have established themselves. As the hippo population has grown and expanded its range, Human hippo encounters have increased, raising significant safety concerns. Hippos may appear docile as they float in water, but they are consistently ranked among the most dangerous large land mammals in Africa, responsible for numerous human fatalities each year. Their territorial behavior poses real risks to local communities in Colombia. Despite their bulky appearance, hippos can move surprisingly quickly, reaching speeds of up to 30 kilometers per hour on land. They are particularly aggressive when protecting their young or territory, and their unpredictable nature makes encounters potentially deadly. Local fishermen have reported increasingly frequent disruptions to their activities as hippos claim territory in fishing areas. Farmers whose lands border water bodies now face not only crop damage but personal safety risks when working near hippo-inhabited waters. Several dangerous encounters have been reported in recent years, though fortunately, Colombia has so far avoided the fatality rates seen in parts of Africa. The safety risk extends to water transportation. In areas where hippos have established territories, boat traffic can trigger defensive responses, particularly from mothers with calves. This has forced changes in traditional river use patterns in some communities. Local authorities have had to develop safety protocols and educational campaigns to help residents coexist with these massive animals. Warning signs now appear at water access points in affected areas, and community alerts are issued when hippos are spotted in new locations. As the population continues to grow and expand its range, these safety concerns will likely intensify, potentially affecting more communities throughout the Magdalena River Basin. In 2021, Colombia began implementing a sterilization program as its primary management strategy for controlling the hippo population. However, this approach has proven extraordinarily challenging and expensive. Each sterilization procedure costs approximately $50,000 and requires specialized veterinary expertise that is in limited supply. The process begins with the difficult task of safely sedating a hippo, an animal whose semi-aquatic lifestyle presents unique risks during anesthesia. Veterinarians must carefully calculate dosages for animals that can weigh up to 3,000 kilograms, with the constant concern that a sedated hippo might drown if it enters water before the procedure is complete. The surgical procedures themselves are complex, requiring specialized equipment and highly trained personnel. Male hippos present particular challenges due to their internal testicles, making castration more invasive than in many other mammals. For females, the thickness of their skin and the difficulty of accessing reproductive organs make sterilization surgeries technically demanding. Given the current population size of 150 to 170 hippos, sterilizing enough animals to make a significant demographic impact would require enormous financial resources and many years of consistent effort. Even with substantial investment, experts question whether sterilization alone can effectively control the population growth rate, particularly as hippos continue to disperse throughout the watershed. The logistical challenges extend beyond the medical procedures. Tracking and monitoring hippos to identify which animals have already been sterilized requires sophisticated identification systems. The program must also prioritize which animals to target first for maximum population impact, typically focusing on dominant males and breeding-age females. Despite these challenges, sterilization remains the most publicly acceptable management approach, even if its effectiveness at scale remains unproven for such a rapidly growing population. As the limitations of sterilization have become apparent, Colombian authorities have been forced to consider more controversial and complex management alternatives. Culling, the controlled killing of hippos, represents the most direct and potentially effective population control method. However, this approach has faced significant domestic and international public opposition. The hippos have developed a cultural significance in some regions, and their charismatic nature has generated public sympathy that complicates management decisions. Despite the ecological rationale, Government proposals to cull hippos have repeatedly met with public protests and legal challenges. Relocation offers another alternative, though with substantial logistical hurdles. In late 2022, preliminary agreements were reached to relocate some hippos to sanctuaries in Mexico and India. However, the challenges are formidable. Transporting adult hippos requires specialized equipment, including custom-built crates that can safely contain animals weighing several tons. International relocations involve complex permitting processes under CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, quarantine requirements to prevent disease transmission, and substantial transportation costs. The physical risks to both the hippos and handling personnel during capture and transport are significant. In March 2023, the Colombian government announced its most comprehensive plan yet, committing $3.5 million to a multifaceted approach, combining sterilization, selective culling, and potential relocations. This represents the most significant financial commitment to addressing the issue to date. The plan also includes enhanced monitoring systems, using GPS tracking and drone surveillance to better understand hippo movements and population dynamics. This data will allow for more targeted intervention strategies. The comprehensive approach acknowledges that no single method is likely to resolve the situation, and that effective management will require a combination of techniques implemented consistently over many years. The Colombian hippo situation illustrates how invasive species management often extends beyond purely scientific considerations into cultural values and economic interests. Despite clear ecological concerns, public attachment to the hippos has complicated management efforts in surprising ways. In some communities near Hacienda Nápoles, the hippos have been embraced as unofficial mascots and tourist attractions. Local businesses sell hippo-themed souvenirs, and tour operators offer hippo spotting excursions. This economic dimension creates stakeholders with financial interests in maintaining the hippo presence. The animals have also entered Colombian popular culture in unexpected ways. They're featured in children's books, local art, and even regional folklore. Some communities have developed a sense of pride in hosting these exotic creatures, viewing them as a unique aspect of local identity. This cultural adoption makes management decisions politically sensitive. The hippos have become emblematic of a broader tension in conservation between scientific evidence and public sentiment. Wildlife managers face the challenge of communicating complex ecological impacts to communities that may value the hippos for cultural or economic reasons. Media coverage has further complicated the situation. International news stories often focus on the hippos' connection to Pablo Escobar, framing them as a curious legacy of the notorious drug lord rather than emphasizing their ecological impact. This framing can trivialize the serious environmental concerns or cast management efforts in a negative light. Public education campaigns have attempted to shift perception by highlighting the ecological consequences of the growing hippo population, but deeply held public attachments remain a significant factor in policy decisions. This tension between ecological necessity and public perception illustrates how invasive species management involves navigating not just scientific, but also social, cultural, and economic considerations. Colombia's hippo situation has implications that extend far beyond its borders, offering valuable lessons for invasive species management worldwide. Perhaps the most important lesson is the critical importance of early intervention. When the population consisted of just a handful of animals in the 1990s, decisive action could have prevented the current crisis at a fraction of today's management costs. This underscores the importance of swift action when non-native species are first detected, a principle that applies to invasive species management globally. The situation also raises concerns about potential cross-border spread. As climate change potentially expands suitable habitat for these animals, scientists warn that Colombia's hippo problem could spread to neighboring countries via connected waterways. This would transform a national ecological challenge into an international one, potentially affecting ecosystems throughout northern South America. Climate models suggest that warming temperatures may create even more favorable conditions for hippo population growth in the region, further complicating long-term management prospects. The hippo situation has become a case study in conservation circles about the unintended consequences of exotic animal ownership and the particular challenges of managing invasive megafauna. Unlike smaller invasive species, large mammals like hippos present unique management difficulties due to their size, public visibility, and the complex emotional responses they evoke. The Colombian experience is informing invasive species policies in other countries, particularly regarding restrictions on exotic pet ownership and the importance of contingency plans for escaped or released animals. Scientists are also studying the hippos to better understand how large herbivores adapt to new environments, information that could prove valuable for both invasion biology and conservation of hippos in their native range. The ongoing crisis serves as a powerful reminder of how seemingly small human actions, in this case, the importation of 4 animals for a private collection, can cascade into significant environmental challenges that span generations and cross national boundaries. The hippo invasion represents perhaps the most unexpected and enduring legacy of Pablo Escobar. While the drug lord's criminal empire collapsed decades ago, the ecological consequences of his private zoo continue to unfold and will likely persist for generations. This strange connection between criminal history and ecological disruption has created a unique lens through which to view invasive species issues. The situation highlights the unpredictable long-term consequences of individual actions. When Escobar imported those 4 hippos in the 1980s, no one could have anticipated that this would lead to one of Latin America's most significant invasive species challenges. Yet today, decades after his death, scientists, government officials, and local communities continue grappling with the cascading effects of that decision. The hippo situation has become a powerful teaching case in environmental education, demonstrating how ecological systems can be permanently altered by seemingly isolated human choices. Conservation biologists point to the Colombian hippos as an example of how complex and costly invasive species management becomes once a population establishes itself and begins reproducing. For Colombia, a country still working to redefine its international image beyond its association with drug trafficking, the hippos represent a frustrating connection to Escobar that persists in global media coverage. Yet the country's response to this challenge also offers an opportunity to demonstrate leadership in environmental management and conservation science. As Colombia continues to grapple with this unexpected ecological legacy, the world watches and learns from its experience, gaining valuable insights into the complex challenges of managing charismatic but problematic invasive species. The hippo situation serves as a powerful reminder that ecological systems are vulnerable to disruption in ways that can outlast human lifetimes, creating environmental challenges that subsequent generations must address. Pablo Escobar's hippos represent one of the most extraordinary cases of an invasive species in modern history. What began as 4 exotic animals in a drug lord's private collection has exploded into a population of over 150 hippos, transforming Colombia's ecosystems. These massive African mammals, thriving in ideal conditions with abundant water, plentiful food, and no natural predators, have created cascading ecological effects throughout the Magdalena River basin. They've altered water chemistry, disrupted native species, and created increasing human safety concerns. Colombia's management challenges illustrate the complexity of addressing invasive megafauna, balancing ecological necessity against public sentiment, weighing expensive sterilization programs against controversial culling, and navigating the logistical nightmares of potential relocations. The situation serves as a powerful warning about the unintended consequences of exotic animal ownership and the critical importance of early intervention in invasive species management. As climate change potentially expands suitable habitat for these animals, Colombia's experience offers crucial lessons for conservation efforts worldwide. This unexpected ecological legacy of Pablo Escobar will continue to shape Colombian ecosystems for generations to come, demonstrating how profoundly human actions can transform natural systems in ways that outlast human lifetimes. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for updates. Your feedback is appreciated. We hope to see you again.